Steve Jobs was a brilliant man who was seen as an innovator by millions. Steve Jobs made Apple the technological powerhouse it is today. In Apple's earlier years, Steve Jobs was fired from the company even though he was a co-founder of Apple. Joe Siegel said, "History is filled with trailblazers who stumbled before finding success. But Steve Jobs' career followed a different arc, a meteoric rise, a humbling fall, and then one amazing comeback, perhaps the most spectacular second act of all time." Steve Jobs was born on February 24, 1955, in the city of San Francisco to an unwed mother. During his early childhood, Jobs didn't care too much about school. In fact, his most memorable teacher, Imogen Hill, got him interested in school through bribes of candy and money. Roman Moisicot said he quickly became hooked so much that he skipped the 5th grade and went straight to middle school, namely Crittenden Middle School. After middle school, Steve Jobs ended up transferring to a different school known as Homestead High School. This is the high school where he gained his interest in electronics and eventually led to his introduction to Stephen Wozniak, who later helps Mr. Jobs in building and in the development of the Apple company. After becoming good friends, the both of them started building blue boxes, which are boxes that actually, it's called phone phreaking, that use signals to hack AT&T's wireless networks. Their network. This allowed the user to make free calls off AT&T's network. The boys started traveling around Berkeley's dorm room selling the boxes door to door, which of course is an illegal venture. So, almost getting caught by the police, they eventually stopped that. However, this illegal partnership did fuel their prosperous venture to start legal business years later with each other for the Apple company. Steve Jobs was the co-founder of the company Apple, along with Steve Wozniak. However, Steve Jobs was let go from the company because of an internal power struggle. Steve thought he had the support of the board, which in fact he did not, and after some time Steve Jobs announced his formal resignation from Apple, stating that he was going to start another company, which was called Next Inc. Although what he failed to say was that he was taking a lot of high-level people from Apple with him to Next Inc., which later pretty much upset Apple substantially. It led to a lawsuit against the co-founders of all the six co-founders of Next Inc. So in turn, this pretty much set forth Next Inc. not creating anything for the first year in fear that they would lose the technology that they the technology that they were putting forth into the company. They feared Apple would strip them of that. Along with taking the step out of Apple, Jobs invested $10 million in a company which we all may know today as Pixar. He invested this even though his heart really belonged to the other company, Next Inc. Pixar did, however, end up reaching a deal with Disney to make a fully computer animated movie, but Disney more or less ripped them off because they were fairly young guys and really didn't know any better. The movie they did, however, put together was called Toy Story, which, Pixar, during this time, Pixar wasn't doing really hot. So, Steve Jobs, along with some help from some other people, he got Toy Story in motion through Pixar. This basically kicked off Pixar pretty substantially. So his investment in that was finally paying off. Steve Jobs does eventually return to Apple. The next executives call up Apple and tell them about their new operating system, which Apple was looking for, a good one. Jobs then approaches Apple and persuades them into buying his company Next Inc. for $400 million. That was over Emilio's $200 million, which he was the acting CEO of Apple. Steve later returned to Apple whenever Emilio failed miserably at delivering a speech and lost the company nearly $1 billion. Steve Jobs ended up saving the company through his genius strategy of marketing and sales. In conclusion, Steve Jobs was a brilliant man who made Apple the technological powerhouse it is today. Without his innovation and leadership, I do not believe Apple would be the leading technological giant that it has become. Through his ventures, Steve Jobs has brought joy in countless numbers of technological breakthroughs to the community, and to believe this all started out in a single man's garage. Thank you.